Hello test Hello test 1 2 3ลองได้ครับ Okay, good morning, Dr. Julathep Kajonchaikun, Acting Executive Director of the National Energy Technology Center or NTEC. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's virtual workshop on the enhancing climate adaptation capacity of ASEAN energy system through the concept of energy resilience. This workshop is organized as a part of the 11th ASEAN Science and Technology Innovation Week or ASTIW. My name is Rakiat from the International Collaboration section of MTech and I will be the MC for these sessions. Okay, now I guess we can then proceed to the first order of the event. And to kick off the program, we will begin with an opening remark by Dr. Julathep Kajonchaikun, Acting Executive Director of NTEC. Okay, may you please join me to invite Dr. Julathep, please. ประมาณนี้นะครับขอบคุณครับ เรียบร้อยครับก็
ค 5 6 7 8ทดสอบครับทดสอบ1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับ1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0ทดสอบครับเช็ควอนจือ1 2 3 4โอเคโอเคเนาะข้างหน้าโอเคแล้วเนาะโอเคด้านหลังได้ยินโอเคครับบนโต๊ะ1 2 3 4ทดสอบเทสสวัสดีครับทดสอบครับพี่เหมียวสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
โอเคพี่บอยเอาเพลงโอเคเอาเพลงลงก่อนนะครับพี่เดี๋ยวจะไล่ซีนนะครับให้ฟังแล้วก็ที่ไปอัปเดตมาด้วยนะครับว่าจะเกิดอะไรขึ้นบ้างครับดร.กมนาถนะครับโอเคเดี๋ยวช่วง9 โมงครึ่งนะครับตอนเราเริ่มแล้วนะครับตอน9 โมงครึ่งจะมีพิธีกรหนึ่งท่านนะครับชื่อคุณวินนะครับฮะปึ๊บจะโอเคจะมีคุณวินขึ้นมากล่าวเปิดก่อนนะครับแล้วก็จะนำเข้า Opening Remark ของดร.จุฬาเทพนะครับดร.จุฬาเทพจะซูมเข้ามาครับหลังจากดร.จุฬาเทพซูมเข้ามาพูดจนจบนะครับภาพจะตัดไปตรงดร.กมนาถที่อยู่ด้านบนเวทีบนโต๊ะนะครับมุมเดิมของดร.ลิลลี่เมื่อวานครับผมดร.กมนาถก็จะพูดในท็อปิกของตัวเองนะครับเรื่องราวของตัวเองจนจบเสร็จปุ๊บก็จะนำเข้าเป็นท่านเป็นคุณโปรเฟสเซอร์อิซูมินะครับจบเสร็จปุ๊บก็จะเป็นดร.กมนาถมานำเข้าโปรเฟสเซอร์ลอเรนซ์นะครับจบคุณลอเรนซ์ก็จะเป็นเบรกนะครับตัวเบรกตรงนี้นะครับก่อนปิดเบรกจะเป็น MC คุณวินนะครับเข้ามาสรุปก่อนเบรกนะครับหลังจากนั้นจะเริ่มเบรก20 นาทีพอเบรก20 นาทีเสร็จปุ๊บคุณวินนะครับ MC คุณวินก็จะเข้ามาเปิดช่วงอีกช่วงหนึ่งนะครับหลังจากเบรกก็จะเป็นดร.กมนาถนะครับคุณวินก็จะโยนให้คุณดร.กมนาถนะครับดร.กมนาถก็จะส่งเข้าสปีกเกอร์ท่านต่อไปก็คือคุณเยนิต้านะครับคุณเยนิต้าพูดไปจนจบเสร็จปุ๊บดร.กมนาถก็จะนำเข้าคุณวรจิตดร.วรจิตนะครับซึ่งเป็นสปีกเกอร์ท่านสุดท้ายของช่วงเช้านะครับจบดร.วรจิตเสร็จปุ๊บก็จะเป็นดิสคัชชันกันแวบอัพทุกอย่างนะครับแล้วก็จะเป็น MC คุณวินนะครับเข้ามาปิดช่วงเช้าประมาณนี้ครับพี่เหมียว
คนที่พอตอนพาแนลอะค่ะคนที่มาก่อนเบรกอะจะต้องเข้ามาคุยพาแนลด้วยเลยใช่ปะหรือว่าออกไปตั้งแต่เบรกแล้วค่ะน่าจะอยู่หมดเนาะ
อยู่ครับอยู่หมดเลย โอเคงั้นเดี๋ยวไล่ช่วงบ่ายให้ฟังนะครับโอเคช่วงบ่ายนะครับบนเวที่นี่ออนไซต์นะครับบนเวทีจะตั้งโต๊ะ3ตัวพร้อมเก้าอี้นะครับจะมี3คนขึ้นไปบนเวทีก็คือดร.นุวงศ์นะครับดร.กมนาถแล้วก็คุณพิษพงศ์นะครับซึ่งอยู่ที่นี่หมดเลยจะขึ้นไปนั่งบนเวทีเริ่มพูดทีละคนเลยฮะโมเดเลเตอร์ก็คือคุณนุวงศ์นะครับก็จะเริ่มนะครับแล้วก็นำเข้าสปีกเกอร์แต่ละท่านฮะโอเคนะครับพอจบ3ท่านที่อยู่หน้างานนะครับก็จะเข้าช่วงเบรกนะครับเบรก20 นาทีช่วงบ่าย14:30 ถึง 14:50 นาทีนะครับหลังจากนั้นจะมาต่ออีกช่วงหนึ่งนะครับจะเปลี่ยนโมเดเลเตอร์ก็เป็นดร.กมนาถนะครับก็จะนำเข้าการพูดคุยนะครับในช่วงสุดท้ายกับคุณเกรนนะครับคนแรกจากฟิลิปปินส์นะครับแล้วก็คุณหทัยทิพย์นะครับไทยแลนด์หลังจากนั้นก็เป็นดิสคัชชั่นกันพี่เหมียวติดอะไรไหมฮะ
ขอทวนตอนบ่ายอีกทีค่ะช่วงแรกก่อนเบรกอะค่ะจะเป็นดร.นุวงศ์ดร.กมนาถแล้วก็คุณพิษพงศ์พูดทีละคนถูกไหมคะ
ใช่ครับ
เสร็จแล้วก็มี
discussion
discussion
ถูกต้อง
แล้วก็มาเบรก
ครับ
discussion กัน3 คนหรือว่าทุกคนที่เชิญมาทั้งหมดที่มีอีก10 กว่าคนเกือบ20 คนนะคะจะยังไงบ้างด้วยค่ะพี่บอย
เหมียวครับเหมียวพี่ขอเอารูม B1 ไลฟ์ออกจากโคโฮสต์หน่อยเพราะว่าเสียงทั้งหมดมันออกตอนนี้คือใครเข้ามาเสียงก็เด้งตึ้งตึ้งตึ้งตึ้งตลอดเลยขอเอาโคโฮสต์ออกหน่อย
เนี่ยค่ะ
มันเด้งให้เราผลักเข้าไปไงพี่พี่เหมียวกี้ขอคำถามเมื่อกี้มาอีกรอบค่ะที่พี่ถามเมื่อกี้
คนที่เชิญเข้ามาหน้างานในซูมอะค่ะอีกประมาณน่าจะ20 คนอะค่ะ
ค่ะ
เขาจะพูดด้วยหรือว่าฟังเฉย
ก็ทุกคนจะปิดกล้องไว้แล้วเราก็ตั้งว่าใครจะพูดก็คือให้เปิดกล้องอะพี่
คือ MC หรือว่า moderator ก็จะเป็นคนแจ้งให้ถูกไหมคะ
ใช่ก็ตอนนี้เราก็จะเปิดกล้องเฉพาะคนที่จะเป็นสปีกเกอร์พูดก่อนใครที่ยังไม่พูดก็ให้ปิดไปก่อนถ้าใครจะพูดก็ให้เปิด
หมายถึงว่า moderator จะแจ้งให้ใช่ไหมคะ
เดี๋ยวเขาจะแจ้งให้ค่ะค่ะ
แล้วก็พี่กี้ก็ทำซีนไปปกติเนาะตามที่พี่แทนบอกอะค่ะ record ให้สวยงามแต่เราจะไม่ลูปกลับมาเข้ามาให้งงถูกไหมช่วงบ่าย
ไม่ลูกกลับมา
ไม่ค่ะ
ไม่ครับ
เลคคอร์ดเฉยๆค่ะ
ไม่ลูปกลับเข้ามาเนาะช่วงบ่ายแต่ว่าทำซีนสวยงามนะคะ
สวยงามค่ะ
โอเค ตอนนี้มีดรวรจิตเข้ามาแล้ว1 คนนะคะ
เมียวเข้าไปเอาคนของเมียวเข้ามาเองนะวันนี้พอดีพี่ค่อนข้างเยอะตัวsecretariat ของมินิสเตอร์เข้ามาเยอะอยู่เหมือนกัน
ค่ะ
ได้ครับ
พูดปกติได้เลยนะคะ
ได้ครับครับของผมไป waiting room B ของผมไป waiting room B ครับครับ ว่าเสียงหรือผมต้องใกล้อีกนิดนึงอ๋อประมาณนี้ดีไหมฮะครับครับผม
Okay, good morning, Dr. Julathep Kajon Chaikun, Acting Executive Director of the National Energy Technology Center, or NTEC. Distinguished speaker and participant, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's virtual workshop on enhancing climate adaptation capacity of ASEAN energy system through the concept of energy resilience. This workshop is organized as a part of the 11th ASEAN Science, Technology and Innovation Week, or ASTIW. My name is Rakiet Niyom Vanisha from the International Collaboration section of MTech, and I will be the MC for these sessions. Now, I guess we can then proceed to the first order of the event. And to kick off the program, we will begin with an opening remark by Dr. Julathep Kajon Chaikun, Acting Executive Director of NTEC. May you please join me to invite Dr. Julathep to give an opening remark, please.
Dr. Julathep, maybe you are muted.
Yes.
Okay, so we can hear you now.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Professor Takako Izumi, International Research Institute of Disaster Science, Tohoku University, Japan. Professor Lawrence Delina, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Hong Kong, China. Professor Nofri Yenita, Dalla University, Technology, Mara, Malaysia. Dr. Warajit Setapan, Asian Development College for Community Economy and Technology, or ADZ, Chiang Mai, Rajabhat University, Thailand. Distinguished speakers and participants from Thailand and ASEAN member states, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am very pleased to welcome you all to the virtual workshop, Enhancing Climate Adaptation Capacity of ASEAN's Energy Systems through the concept of energy resilience today. This workshop is co-organized by Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, or MESIS, and the National Energy Technology Center, or NTEC, of NASDA, as a part of the 11th Asian Science, Technology and Innovation Week. As we know, renewable energy is internationally recognized as a driving mechanism for sustainable development. An increase in renewable energy share will respond to several sustainable development goals, or SDGs, including the goal number 7, clean and affordable energy, goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities, goal number 13, climate action. Even though the use of renewable energy is a key to climate change mitigation, renewable energy generation systems themselves are still affected by climate change through the increase in frequency and impact of natural disasters, unpredictable weather and meteorological events. These problems can cause a decrease in energy efficiencies as well as irreversible damage to the power generation systems. Climate resilience is a concept to fortify infrastructure and communities in order to withstand climate events, rapidly recover, and adapt to a new normal. The concept has been extended to energy infrastructure, especially renewable energy systems, under energy resilience frameworks, aiming to prepare renewable energy systems for natural disasters, to absorb undesired consequences, and to rapidly recover after the disruption. It therefore builds the capacity of the energy system toward climate change adaptation. The concept of energy resilience has gained research interest lately, particularly in Europe and America. However, very limited attention is in Asian region. NTEC recognized the necessity of applying the concept of energy resilience to renewable energy systems and work with the Office of the Permanent Secretary of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, Thailand, along with the ASEAN Secretariat to push forward energy resilience as one of the COSTI 2021's annual priorities to address SDGs, which was formally adopted in COSTI 79. This past Tuesday, this workshop will be a good starting point for the ASEAN member states to come together and discuss the way to promote the concept of energy resilience and use it to enhance ASEAN's climate change adaptation capacity. I am very much glad this workshop gathers experts not only within ASEAN but also from Japan, Hong Kong, and China to share best practice in applying the concept of energy resilience in the real world and explore potential collaborations. I'm very much sure that we have plenty to share and to learn from one another, and I hope that you will have engaging discussions and a great time to enjoy the workshop. I now declare enhancing climate adaptation capacity of ASEAN energy systems through the concept of energy resilience workshop open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julatev. Okay, now I think this is a moment that everyone is waiting for. Let's start with the first talk by our distinguished speaker, Dr. Kampana Silva. He is a researcher from NTEC, NASDA, Thailand. His talk today is on energy resilience as the mean to enhance climate adaptation capacity of ASEAN energy system. And Dr. Kambanat will also be the moderator for this morning section. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Kambanat. And Dr. Kambanat, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And also thank you very much, Dr. Julatev, for your very warm opening remarks. So I guess it would be a good start here. So you heard quite a bit from Dr. Julatev about the reason that we are introducing, this workshop as a starting point of the promotion of this concept of energy resilience as the mean to enhance climate adaptation capacity of ASEAN energy systems. So I will be, talking a little bit about this in detail, and you also will be hearing during the whole morning why this energy resilience concept is important, and also to hear that how the resilience concept, from other area can really help enhance this energy resilience concept and also the climate adaptation capacity of the ASEAN energy system. As being introduced, I'm Kampana Silva from National Energy Technology Center, which is a new technology center under National Science and Technology Development Agency, or NASDA, which is again a member of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, or MACI, Thailand. So I think this would be a good place to start, as being introduced by Dr. Julatev, that this energy resilience has been adopted by ASEAN Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation as one of the 2021 ASEAN COSTI priority to address sustainable development goals. So I would like to touch a little bit on this United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You see that there are 17 goals here, and many of the SDGs support renewable energy, which is one of the very important areas within National Energy Technology Center. Starting from goal number 7, affordable and clean energy, you will see that there is a target to increase the share of renewable energy. Next one, goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. There are several targets here that actually would help introducing renewable energy in the city and also in the community, including the rural area. Lastly, goal number 13, climate action. You would see that renewable energy is actually one of the important means to help reduce carbon emission and will contribute to climate change mitigation. But actually, I would like to take a closer look in the SDG number 13, climate action. So you will see here that there are 2 targets for this SDG 13. The first one is, I would like to go to the bottom one first, 13.2. It's actually integrate climate change measures into national policy, strategies, and planning. So you would see that in this SDG 13, first they are talking about climate change mitigation, which actually, if you are working in the field of renewable energy, you will be very, very familiar with it. The next one is the top one, the target number 13.1, strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters. So you would see that this is actually the other view, the other aspect of the climate change or climate action, where you think more about adapting to the climate change, adapting to the new meteorological conditions here that we have in the world. And this actually also include the electricity generating systems as well. So you would see now that we have been looking at renewable energy as one of the means to address climate change, but now we have to take a closer look at it as the thing that being affected by climate change, and we need to also think about the way that we can adapt to the climate change situation. So what we did was that we hear, well actually throughout the 3 days in the ASEAN COSTI meeting, that people have been talking a lot about resilience. And actually resilience is a very good concept that you can use to increase the adaptive capacity of the system. So there are a lot of people who start applying this concept of resilience in different types of system and different domains. And also there are people that apply that in the energy domain. So the concept of resilience itself will help recognize and address the risks associated with climate change. And most importantly, so when we compare, well actually we have been doing quite a lot on risk assessment of energy system. So when you do the risk assessment, you will try to evaluate the preparation capacity and also absorptive capacity of the system. But when we talk about resilience, we are talking about two more capacities, which are recovery capacity and adaptive capacity. So the concept of resilience will provide opportunity to examine climate adaptation capacity of the system or infrastructure, and that was the reason that we hold this workshop, to see how the concept of resilience would help enhance the adaptive capacity of our energy system within the ASEAN region. Until now, scholars have made several attempts to apply this concept to the energy domain, and past studies help grasp the recovery and adaptive capacity of the energy system. So you would see that when we apply this concept of resilience to the energy system, it can actually help a lot for us to capture the recovery capacity and also adaptive capacity of the system. So our team, so we thought that, well, actually, it would be good when we talk about energy resilience that we have kind of like common definition that we can use together. But however, when we get through all the papers that have been that we have been seeing related to energy resilience, we see that people have their own definition for energy resilience. So actually, we dropped the idea of having the common definition because we found that it's very difficult. But in turn, we try to see that what would be the landscape of energy resilience research. So when people are doing research on energy resilience, what are they talking about? So what we did was that we used the bibliometric analysis, which actually could help find the topics that are related to energy resilience. And you see that there are important topics here listed on the right-hand side. I mean, on the figure, you see climate change, you see sustainability, distributed energy resources or microgrid, and also smart grid. And this is the reason that we really believe that energy resilience would be a good concept for us to use to enhance, to use to cultivate the adaptive capacity of the ASEAN energy systems. And actually, well, in the afternoon it will be a closed session, but we will be discussing a little more in detail about the landscape of energy resilience research. So, well, as we are here in the ASEAN COSTI 79 meeting, so I would like to touch a little bit upon the ASEAN Innovation Roadmap, which has been proposed by Thailand, I think like 1.5 years ago. So in the ASEAN Innovation Roadmap, there are 5 important areas, including policy, enterprise readiness, workforce readiness, STI solutions, and IPR system. So at a first glance, we may think that, well, the concept of energy resilience is something really very, very related to like the desk study or like the paper research or something like that. But actually, it also helped contribute to this innovation roadmap in the area for STI solutions. Within this area 4, the goal 5 is to attain ASEAN community building and UN SDGs, through STI solution. And you would see that the objective under this goal is to harness STI to facilitate the realization of the UN SDGs by promoting further use of STI within several domains. And you would see that energy and also disaster-related problems are the two important domains that ASEAN is actually focusing on. So how does energy resilience study align with AIR or ASEAN Innovation Roadmap? So I put it here explicitly so that you all know the linkage very well with the AIR. It helps strengthen the resilience of energy systems which align with the SDG goal numbers 7, 11, and 13. And also energy resilience is an STI concept that can help community develop the capacity to respond to extreme climate events and also disasters in order to ensure energy security. So you would see that, well, it's highly related to energy and also disaster. And, well, I would like to emphasize this point again. Actually, the day before yesterday and yesterday was the ASEAN COSTI 79th meeting. And within the meeting, they will also discuss about the progress of 2021 annual priorities. And you would see here that in the agenda item number 6, 6.1, COSTI 2021 annual priorities, you see energy resilience as the project to address sustainable development goals, which is one of the important 2021 annual priorities of COSTI. So I would like to also touch briefly here about the things that we have done related to energy resilience in our organization, our National Energy Technology Center, NTEC. We did pilot study of energy resilience assessment. So we assessed 4 of the renewable energy systems, including on-grid solar, which is 700 kilowatt solar power plant at Chiang Mai Ratchapat University, Chiang Mai. The second one is the off-grid solar. This is 100 kilowatt microgrid at Ban Phadan, Lamphun. The third one is the commercial biomass power plant. It's a biomass power plant at Ban Khao Noi, Pisanulok. And lastly, it's the community biogas, which is a biogas power plant in a pig farm with a 60 kVA generator at Ban Kham Khan, Khon Kaen. And I summarized the findings here from our pilot study that all representative energy systems are vulnerable to natural disasters and they need climate adaptation strategy. And additionally, we also found that all these energy systems are exposed to man-made and technological disasters. And well, not very surprising to find this, but we found that common vulnerabilities are lack of planning, lack of capacity for maintenance and restoration. So you would see that actually it's not the hard measures, but the soft measures that are important in enhancing the resilience of the system. And resilience enhancement measures lead to potential cost reduction when looking at a longer time frame. So now we see that we have good incentive to promote this energy resilience assessment also in private sector. And in this morning, we will have Dr. Warajit Sethapan from Chiang Mai Ratchapat University talking a little more in detail on this on-grid solar at ASTIW-II Chiang Mai Ratchapat University. So that's one of very good example that you will see that how energy resilience would really help enhance the climate adaptation capacity of the system. And I would like to talk a little more about this workshop. We aim to promote this energy resilience studies in ASEAN. So this would basically be the way that we will be following forward with this concept. So we know that there are a number of ASEAN member states in which the study on resilience have been done quite a lot. But it would be, for example, in climate domain, like climate resilience, or in disaster domain, like disaster resilience. And also we have like good experience in renewable energy introduction in a lot of countries here. So we picked 3 important countries, Thailand, Philippines, and Malaysia, to share with us this morning. their experience related to resilience. And also we invited one expert from Japan also to share the concept, the application of concept of resilience in disaster domain, and also to try to see the way that we can work together, to discuss the way that we can work together in order to promote energy resilience in this region and also in the dialogue partner institutes. So we try to gather from this workshop good practices and also lesson learned in order to promote energy resilience in ASEAN. So what we plan to do after this workshop is to summarize workshop outputs and outcomes in the form of executive summary and report, and try to push forward R&D and application of energy resilience concept to be the, so we have done that to be the priority in ASEAN STI, but we also think about pushing that also in the energy platform. When I say energy platform, it's through RESSN, or the Renewable Energy Subsectorial Network, under SOME, which is under the Energy Committee of ASEAN. So we hope that our workshop and also our upcoming events would familiarize the concept of energy resilience in ASEAN and become the driving mechanism for actual implementation of energy resilience assessment in renewable energy systems in the region. And as our future plan, we plan to propose a framework to push forward the agenda on energy resilience application with potential dialogue partner. And we are thinking also about Japan, because Thailand will become the country coordinator of ASEAN-Japan starting from July the 1st, 2021. And also we aim that we will promote R&D activities in ASEAN through the STI and energy platforms. So this would be the lineup of the agenda this morning and this afternoon. In the morning, it will be the open session. So after my talk, I will be inviting Professor Takako Izumi from Japan to talk a little bit about her experience in resilience in the higher education institutions. And then I will invite Professor Rollins Delina. Well, he's actually a Filipino, but he's now working at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Hong Kong, China, to share a little bit about applying the concept of resilience in the energy domain in the Philippines. And after the break, we will be hearing from Professor Nofri Yenita Dalan from University of Technology Mara, Malaysia, about her promotion of renewable energy as one of the means to enhance energy resilience in the ASEAN and also in Malaysia. And then finally, the morning session will be closed by Dr. Warajit Setapan from ASTIW Chiang Mai Ratchapat University with the case study that Chiang Mai Ratchapat University has done with NTech. And well, in the afternoon, we also have closed sessions, and we'll be welcoming a number of our friends to discuss together how we can work further. So, well, this ends my presentation, and I will stop sharing my screen. I think we are doing well regarding the time, so I will be open the floor up for question and answer, well, after the presentation of Professor Delina. So now I would like to move directly to the first presentation of Professor Takako Izumi from Irides Tohoku University, Japan. She will be sharing her experience on campus safety and resilience toward multiple hazards at higher education institutions in Asia. So now the floor is yours, Professor Takako. You can start sharing your screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Silva. So my name is Takako Izumi from International Research Institute of Disaster Science in Tohoku University in Sendai, Japan. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share my presentation today. So I will share the slides. Okay, as just Dr. Silva mentioned, today I will talk about campus safety and resilience towards multiple hazards at higher educational institutions in Asia. So my approach will not be really energy or climate adaptation specific, but it's just an idea what we are currently thinking of on campus safety. So the question or overarching topic is that how can we achieve a campus resilience at higher educational institutions? So considering the experience of COVID-19 as well, and the traditional concept of disaster risk reduction may not work and may not be sufficient. So beyond natural hazards, we may have to consider pandemic and other type of hazards, technological hazards and nuclear hazards. So that is a question for all of us right now. So it's just simply the COVID-19, the higher educational institutions affected quite heavily, very badly. So 2 points they affected is that first one is shifting the educational system. And second one is financial challenges. So the reduce of the number of foreign students or simply the reduce of the local students as well. So we were facing quite a lot of challenges, and it probably takes quite a long time to be recovered from these challenges. Then I'm talking about the 2 types of survey today, and we conducted. First one, we conducted the survey, what were the challenges when they respond to COVID-19, and particularly last year. So we asked the organizational preparedness and response and key challenges at organizational level and personal response and challenges. And we received 150 responses from 65 universities located in 29 countries. So because of the time limitation, I'm not going to go to the detailed results, but one the result I really would like to highlight is that preparedness capacity among the universities at higher educational institutions. This one is that the question is whether they have BCP or business continuity plan or response or preparedness plans in advance, or if they do, and it included pandemic or COVID-19 aspects or not. So half of them already mentioned they had a preparedness plan, and half did not have any plans. And also the BCP, it's not also enough. Then even they have BCP or preparedness plans, that the problem is that these did not include the biological hazards and other different types of hazards aspects. So that was the challenges we found out from the current preparedness in universities. So it's just a summary of the results is that as a governance level, and the BCP is lacking, and educational part, and for the future, we really need to enhance the multiple educational method and tools, and also the blended learning approaches will be required. And also it is very important to raise awareness on focusing on all types of disasters, not only natural disasters and the level-based fire chemical safety risks. So for the future, networking with the various stakeholders will be very important, and also the funding as well. And to strengthen the preparedness capacity, definitely we need human resources and who have expertise on the different types of disasters, and also funding and to change infrastructure and policies and regulations. We definitely need those things. Without those, and it's really difficult for us to change any current status. So then the second type of the survey is that, and as I mentioned, and we have to consider rather not only the natural hazards, but rather all hazards approach. So to do that, we saw what is the current status on universities in terms of the all hazards approach and preparedness for all types of hazards. So for this survey, we received 23 responses from the different universities in Asia, especially. So how we conducted the survey is that we developed the minimum checklist for disaster preparedness on campus in 2011 among the APLU, Association of Pacific Rim Universities Multi-Hazards Campus Safety Workshop held in 2018. We developed this minimum checklist. So based on this checklist, we asked universities what is the current status from the 1 to 5, and we assigned a score, the level of their achievement on each indicator. So these are the indicators we came up. Then we also included 6 categories. So first one is the policy and governance. And second one is that risk management. And third category is physical digital infrastructure. And the fourth is awareness training education. And fifth, physical psychological aid. And these are the original minimum checklist we developed for targeting for natural hazards. But based on the experience of COVID-19, we decided to include other aspects for minimum checklist. So these are the one, the academic continuity. So because as I mentioned, this is one of the biggest challenges for universities, so that we have to see their preparedness level from the respect of academic continuity. So each category has 5 or 6 indicators to evaluate. Then the result, for example, like this, and this is the category 1, the policy and governance. And that includes 9 indicators. And we ask each university to score, the level of their achievement. So in this category, the highest was that the university has developed an evacuation plan to accommodate students and staff, which is very good. And the other highest point is that university sets up a disaster countermeasure office once a disaster strikes. So this is after the disaster strikes, and they immediately form a disaster countermeasure office, and they also start evacuation actions if necessary, following their current and existing plan. So under the policy and governance category, these two are very good and advanced points. But on the other hand, for example, the lowest is that the necessary support to strengthen the preparedness for future disasters and mitigate risks, such as that the development of a BCP is provided to departments and institutes under universities, so that this support is lacking. So that was the quite obvious under this category. So we saw like this, we reviewed 6 categories. Then based on the by category, the highest and most advanced is that academic continuity. And simply because this survey was taken during the pandemic and COVID-19. So that based on that experience, a lot of universities already improved in this category. So that's why I think that score was quite high in this category. But the lowest was that the risk management. Then this is a quite big issue, because risk management, this category included the risk assessment, or here, this is the indicators and the risk management. And this included the risk assessment and regularly reviewed or updated or something like that. So the lowest is that a risk assessment is conducted and updated regularly, at least annually. That means not many universities or higher educational institutions don't conduct risk assessment in advance. So of course, without conducting a risk assessment, hazard risks are not identified, and accordingly, these risks cannot be reduced. So this is a huge issues, and universities have to reconsider on this point particularly. Then top 5 indicators with the highest score is that 2 of them are from academic continuity and 3 of them are physical infrastructure. So that implies, and a lot of universities already improved their physical infrastructure. For example, the anti-earthquake structure, and also buildings are equipped with also drainage, electricity, fire alarm systems. So it is very good for universities to understand the importance of strengthened infrastructure to protect from the disasters. Then on the other hand, the least progress is that the 2 of them are from policy and governance, and 3 are again the risk management. So in particularly that the lower score, one of the lower score is that risk assessment is conducted and updated regularly, at least annually. This is not done yet, and emergency supplies are always available. This is not yet achieved. So under the category of risk management, the universities really have to reconsider and strengthen together with the enough budget and also the enough human resources. And then in particularly after the COVID-19, the positive improvements were found out at the universities. And one of them is that they reviewed very quickly and revised that their existing plan to incorporate multiple risk management. Then HEIs provided various support to governments in sharing research findings. Then a lot of innovative solutions and guideline strategies were developed together with the collaboration with different stakeholders. These are the very positive part currently, the disaster management and preparedness in the university. Then on the other hand, the major areas for improvement is that first one is risk assessment. I already mentioned repeatedly, a lot of universities do not conduct the proper risk assessment yet. So they immediately need to conduct it, and they have to develop a plan based on this assessment result. Then information sharing and awareness raising among freshmen and also the foreign students. Then more attention must be paid to strengthening cooperation and linkage among various departments within universities. Because without the cooperation and understanding of different departments, this kind of countermeasures not be mainstreamed. And each department has a different types of preparedness measures. And as a university whole, and enough safety and security cannot be achieved. Then, and also the current emergency plan needs to incorporate a public health element. Then lastly is educational and basic facility condition, like internet, needs to be enhanced to provide learning opportunities even under emergency situations. So these are sort of the findings from the survey and in terms of disaster preparedness on campus. So how we can use this kind of data and result into when we consider about energy and also the climate resilience in the region. So I think, as I mentioned, this will be, I hope this kind of result and the way of consideration can be used for all hazard approach. So of course that also includes the climate related hazards and also the climate related, then resilience for energy issues as well. So I hope this sort of the show and the overarching framework when we consider and talk about disaster risk reduction or resilience and for all types of hazards and what kind of things is missing. For example, assessment are enough or information sharing for the foreigners and also the people who came from these regions newly, and these are enough for when we talk about the other aspects, climate and energy as well. and also the cooperation and cooperation with the different line of in the ministries and also or different lines of local governments as well. So I really hope this sort of showed you all the overarching framework, and definitely the universities would like to contribute to the broader type of the resilience, including energy in the future. So I really hope I could contribute something to the way of consideration on climate and also the energy resilience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Izumi, for your very comprehensive presentation. I actually do agree with you that the all hazards approach is something that we can really learn about. And also, like I found some common problems that we have. For example, like people conduct risk assessment, but they do not update. So I think that's like something that very common also in the renewable energy system. So I will be coming back to you again during the Q&A session, which will come before the break. So after the presentation of Professor Delina. So we will have a brief Q&A session for us. I mean, for me, for you, and also for Professor Delina. So, so now I would like to move to the presentation of Professor Lawrence L. Delina first. He's from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Hong Kong, China. And he will be giving the talk on energy resilience Philippines, sustainable energy in an era of cascading crisis. So we would see now that he's talking about cascading crisis. Well, this is something also we need to learn about. So the floor is yours, Professor Delina.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silva. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So I'll be talking about energy resilience in the Philippines. It's focusing on community energy as a vehicle for achieving energy resilience. So I will be also talking about cascading crisis in my.
Excuse me, Professor Delina, can you go to the slideshow mode, please? It seems that, well, you're not at the slideshow mode yet. Okay, it's fine now. Thank you.
Okay, so the Philippines is a vulnerable developing country. It has been ranked as one of the top countries that are very vulnerable to not only climate impacts, but to other hazards as well. And these impacts are disproportionately affecting the population in the Philippines. It's an archipelagic country. It's composed of many islands, about 7,200 islands plus. And the ability to adapt by many Filipinos to these various impacts are being hampered, unfortunately, by a lot of hazards, not only weather-related or natural risks. So we have an increasing debt burden, largely because our governments have been asking for lots of loans, international multilateral loans, which we have to pay in the next more decades. So that is also hampering our ability to adapt to these impacts. We also have limited access to technologies that will basically respond to these vulnerabilities. We have inadequate infrastructures. We have also lack suitable financing. And of course, we should also take into account the other consequences that are produced by the pandemic, for example. So COVID-19 has been impacting the Philippines very disproportionately, even within the Philippines itself. So different locations, different geographies have the different or face these various vulnerabilities differently. So basically, Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. So I've mentioned about COVID-19 already, and then I think Professor Izumi also mentioned about that, and it has to be taken into account. When we talk about resilience, it's not only making technical systems or engineering systems resilient to change, resilient to pressures from extreme weather conditions, for example, We also have to look at people, and I think Dr. Silva has mentioned about this soft kind of drivers of drivers of resilience. So we also have to look at people. So we should also look at systems. We are talking of social systems here, social, political, economic systems, as well as our institutions. Mentioned about cascading crisis. So some literature suggests or use the word multiple shocks or parallel events, those sort of things. So not only from extreme weather events due to climate impacts, disasters occurring from those extreme events, but also humanitarian events. So, and that also include economic disasters, necessarily disasters in terms of economic, but risks or increasing risks in terms of the economy. And they can occur in a cascade as what we can see at present time. So we have COVID-19, which is a public health disaster, if you will, plus changing weather, extreme weather events, plus economic loss of livelihoods, decreasing economic activities. So those different vulnerabilities expose us all to what we can say as a cascading crisis. So the Philippines is not stranger to this. Or actually, again, I would like to stress that we are, at the forefront of this cascading risks. So, for example, when we experience typhoons, the most affected communities are usually dependent on systems that have been locking us in. We could not really innovate a lot. If we take a look at energy systems, most of our present systems are still locked in this centralized kind of configurations. We are very much dependent on poles and on wires. And many of this infrastructure are usually damaged during events of severe typhoons or severe weather extremes. Often during these events, we see large-scale power outages, times when we actually basically need more energy supply for us to recover and to rehabilitate from this from the outages. So this case of typhoon particularly highlight the need for effective energy resilience. But of course, with lockdowns, we can also factor in the effect of the pandemic into our energy systems, especially when we bring in vaccines, for example, that needs constant refrigeration at low temperature. So that is also very related to the concept of resilience. As Ben mentioned already about this intersections between climate change adaptation and energy resilience. So I will not belabor myself to discuss or to describe what climate change adaptation is. I assume that everyone has an understanding of what adaptation means. This concept of build back better, which is the use of the recovery, the rehab, and reconstruction phases after a disaster to increase the resilience of nations and communities, is also an important concept when we talk about climate adaptation. There's also already a mention of DRR, or disaster risk reduction. So these are about reducing exposure to hazards, lessening vulnerabilities of people, etc., etc. And this is also very well established, not only in the academic literature, but also in popular writing. There's also mention about community earlier, and I think we have to be very, very careful when we define what a community is. So a community is usually a group of people, but there is a community that are distinctly urban and distinctly rural. So in the context of the Philippines, for example, we have a lot of urban communities, as well as we have these island communities. We have remote communities in our highlands, communities in our off-grid locations in our islands, and those sort of things. What is important to highlight here is the emerging concept of community resilience, and I'm taking the definition from the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent to mean the ability of actors, organizations, and countries exposed to risks and hazards and underlying vulnerabilities to anticipate, to prepare for, to reduce the impact of, to cope with, and recover from the effects of shocks and stresses without compromising their long-term prospects. I think the last line there, without compromising the long-term prospect, is very important because it talks about sustainability, which is very related to our common goal, to common normative goal to achieve SDGs in 2030. I think there's also mention about renewable energy already earlier on from Dr. Silva's introduction. I would like also to highlight term climate mitigation, which many of you I suspect is already familiar with. So these are anthropogenic interventions or human interventions, basically to reduce emissions or enhance the things of greenhouse gases in response to SDG 13 on climate change and of course to the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC in general. So what we would like to see when we talk about energy resilience is the fusion between climate adaptation and its underlying concepts of DRR, community resilience, etc., with climate mitigation. So when we talk about climate mitigation, we also have to talk about energy transition. And energy transition is basically the principal modus operandi for mitigating climate impacts. And when we talk about energy transition, these are long-term structural changes in energy systems. Again, when we talk about energy systems, it's not only this technical or engineering implements or materials or infrastructure, but there is always that social, political, economic aspects of that system. So what we're trying to do with energy transition is to work towards 100% renewable energy system. And this has been already shown by a number of models and studies to be achievable using existing technologies in existing technologies that are already market available. So 100% renewable energy Philippines is a normative agenda that we should also pursue. So not only in the Philippines, but all over the world as well. So in the Philippines, not only international studies have been done on this, we also have very local kind of studies developed or produced on the possibility of transitioning towards 100% renewable energy system. So when we talk about energy resilience, I know that there has been Dr. Silva has mentioned that we could not really define it. We also attempted it in one of our papers, but for the time being, let's define energy resilience using Arup definition to mean ability of an energy system to reduce the impact of shocks and stresses, including the capacity to anticipate, to absorb, to adapt to, and rapidly recover from such events and to transform where necessary. So as you can see, this very technical, very engineering kind of definition. And what we are trying to do actually in my research group is to look at resilience beyond the engineering resilience. So it has to also incorporate the social, political, and economic aspect of resilience. So as you can see from this definition, this is very related to the understanding of climate adaptation, of Build Back Better. So, but we are lacking an integrated way to look at energy resilience beyond climate adaptation to include climate mitigation and energy transition as well. So I mentioned earlier that we tried to define energy resilience with colleagues from the University of the Philippines in Dalaman. And we published actually a short paper on this. So we did not define what energy resilience is, but what we did was to look at two case studies or a few case studies in the Philippines and in Thailand, and what makes energy resilience in climate vulnerable islands actually. So we look at it from the various perspectives using case analysis. So what we actually found out is that energy resilience can be characterized as a system condition, it's a condition of a system, and some of that characteristics are listed on the slide. It can also be characterized as a set of process, so there's a dynamism involved in it. So when we talk about process, it's here that we integrate the social changes, the political aspects and the economic aspects of energy resilience, such as, for example, trust and accountability for end users, inclusion and participation in the process of energy decision making. So those sort of non-tangible or intangible kind of characteristics that make energy resilience also make energy resilience. And lastly, energy resilience can be characterized as a set of outcomes. So after that set of process, interventions, etc., what sort of outcomes can we expect if we have as an energy resilient system? So we can say that an energy resilient system is reliable. I'll discuss a little bit about what that means in a while. It has to be robust. It has to be strong. It has to have a radical transformation of the systems, both the social and the engineering and technical system. So end users are also very optimistic with their systems, or are they're very optimistic of their systems. Largely, you could not. This is a process, or that is an outcome that requires an intensive process of deliberation and of participation and engagement. So and there are other set of characteristics that makes an energy system resilient. So let's focus on two key characteristics, reliability and robustness. So when we talk about reliability, it is the capacity of the system to operate through instability and controlled events, cascading failures, or unanticipated loss of system components. So the system can fail not only because of extreme weather condition, but it can also fail if there is very weak institutional arrangements that support that particular system. So that is not, when we talk about the latter, that is not really related to extreme weather events due to climate impacts. It is very related to the societal infrastructure, if you can call it that way, the soft infrastructure that makes society move or order society. So we are also talking about robustness, which is the ability for a system and its components to withstand disruption. Again, this is very related again to the concept of climate resilience, which energy resilience is basically taking its cue from. So when we talk about energy resilience, we can say it is synonymous with restorative capacity to build back after an event, to adapt to the changing or shifts in societies or in technological innovation. And it's also synonymous with transformation. So transformation is very important because it's not only the technological or the engineering system that needs to shift or to transform. It's not only a diesel-powered system, for example, in off-grid islands that need to be to shift to 100% RE system, if possible, using local indigenous sources such as in the Philippine context, for example, we have a lot of solar, wind, and ocean tidal kind of renewable energy systems. So, but that is only engineering. We also have to transform how societies order themselves. So that also calls for social transformation. When we talk about social transformation, we can equate it with the concept of strong capacity. So we talk about diversification of the energy supply. So not just focus on diesel, for example, to provide energy resilient systems in off-grid islands, but to use as many as possible sources that are locally or indigenously available. So we also talk about efficiency when we look at strong capacity, the efficiency of the systems to organize itself, and redundancy. That's very important in terms of building back better, or even for adapting to climate impact. So there should be a backup system. So the system here that we are talking about is not only technical system. So there should be a backup system for your solar in case, because the sun is not always shining. There should be a backup system for your wind energy because the wind is not always blowing. And then we have seen a few cases on how these are done actually. And there will be, and in our study, we look at the case of Romblon Island, which successfully transitioned to not necessarily 100%, but almost close to 90% use of indigenous renewable energy. So that is with regards to redundancy in the technical system. But there's also a redundancy in terms of required redundancy in terms of social systems. So how your institutions could function if there has been a change in leadership, for example. So those sort of things also require spare capacity or redundancy. So what we can say here is because of energy transition, because of climate mitigation, you can enable resilience. So it's not only about adaptation that we are now talking about when we look at energy resilience, but it also involves energy transition, which is again the modus operandi for climate mitigation. And resilience requires cooperation over competition and grassroots implementation of technologies, largely because renewable energy systems are very distributed, they are very localized. Small scale solar, for example, small micro hydro, those sort of things. These are very grassroots technologies. And for that technologies to be successful, to be effective, you need grassroots implementation to implement for these technologies. So that's why we are always talking about community energy resilience as well when we talk about energy resilience. So when we talk about climate adaptation and climate resilience, there's always going back to the community. The same is true with energy resilience. It's very local. So when we talk about community energy resilience, it looks back to small, to the micro level of societal organizations, at the level of households, the level of neighborhood associations, the level of village associations, those sort of institutional arrangements at the lower level, at the micro level. So energy resilience is concerned with the interrelationship between infrastructure, so that's a technology, and community structures or perspectives. So that's where the social comes in. So basically, energy resilience is a socio-technical process, if we can use that term, and it should be seen as a continuous process of learning and practice. Okay, so when we studied these various off-grid systems in islands in the Philippines, as well as in metaphorical islands elsewhere, such as in Thailand, we saw that there are a few barriers to energy resiliency. So one is that the state itself, policy itself, is impeding change to achieve energy resilience. So there's a need to expand the target, for example, to diversify our energy systems. So again, calling for not only renewable solar, but also renewable wind, renewable ocean, tidal, etc., whatever is locally or indigenously available. So that's very important to expand not only on off-grid islands actually, but also on islands that are not geographically bounded by water, but are metaphorical islands. So we're talking here of microgrids in cities, for example, a small-scale renewable energy system in the forest community, for example. So those sort of things. And for us to scale this up, we need strong government support and enforcement of renewable energy policy and RE projects. There's also the need to collaborate among decision makers in advancing and adapting RE policy and projects. And when we say collaborate with decision makers, it is really essential to bring what the people want, what that community wants, and establishing new lines of communications across the actors in the supply chain. So you have the suppliers, the consumers, the end users, as well as the policymakers and the entrepreneurs. There's a need for creating a favorable investment climate. Of course, you need money, you need capital to do this. So that's why you need to have a favorable investing. The second barrier is that we have limited technical capacity and supply chain difficulties, again, in the context of islands, or in the context of archipelago in the Philippines. It's very expensive actually to scale up. And there's still this lack of general awareness among our communities, as well as with decision makers regarding off-grid RE systems, although we are also seeing movements or changes towards that direction already. So for example, the Department of Energy in the Philippines have already taken into heart the need to use renewable energy for closing electrification gaps, especially in off-grid islands. Third is the gender inequality and inequity. So this is coming from the literature of climate impacts and climate adaptation. So during disasters or after the disasters, women are much less likely to receive aid and regain food security than men. And we have to take the lessons of that when we talk about energy resilience, how we can close gender inequality in the process of building back better in terms of making our energy systems resilient. So how could we capacitate women to become renewable energy entrepreneurs? How can we capacitate them to become renewable energy installers? Those sort of things is very, very important. So gender sensitivity is very important to be factored in when we talk about energy resilience as well. Okay, so there are a lot of opportunities for increasing energy resilience in the Philippines. The first is to effectively augment crisis response initiatives. We need a multifaceted master planning. So this is very important. If you don't have a plan, then everything will just fall. So there's also that importance of strong community involvement. I keep on stressing that already during the last 15-20 minutes. There's also the need to scale up small scale solar PV. So solar is already dropping in terms of cost. There's already a lot of capacity building towards this technology. So we really need to scale up the deployment of small scale solar PV. It's very important also to note that small scale solar PV also is the best, if not the most effective technology to meet that redundancy requirement in terms of responding to disasters post-disaster. So also the need to adapt on autonomous and planned adaptation systems, so ensuring that there is an appropriate post-disaster management plan to enable a more effective and cost-sensitive response. So planning is again very important. When we talk about planning, the collaboration and partnerships are very essential, ensuring again that decision makers, policy makers, and disaster response transcend social divisions. So you need to speak with people on the ground, the people that are affected with this disasters and are affected with this hazards and vulnerabilities are included in the decision making is important. Diversification and decentralization is also very really important when we talk about energy resilience. And I've already mentioned how we need to use a very heterogeneous kind of energy mix. So solar plus wind plus hydro plus biomass plus other sources of renewable energy is important when we talk about energy resilience. Okay, so diversification is important. At the same time, decentralization is also important. Again, because of the distributed nature of many renewable energy, you have to decentralize not only the system, but also the way societies or end users actually use them. So you need a small-scale distributed energy systems, and that calls for modularity. That's again corresponds to flexibility. Okay, and then strengthening community responses is very important. I keep on mentioning that already. Cooperation, collaboration, and engagement. The need for building community champions is very important. So creativity and leadership. Creating community resilience through local support. So looking at it from the best business perspective, it has to be profitable in order for it to be sustainable. So jobs and business creation is very related to one of the SDG targets as well. And local technical capacity must be paired with local technical expertise. So capacitating local people, the end users of the technology themselves is very important if we want to achieve that sustainability. We don't want to have how do they call that? This solar graves everywhere. We need to capacitate local people, the end users to maintain, to operate, and to check their systems and to improve them in case it needs repair. So with that, I think that's what I can share from my experience working in off-grid islands in the Philippines, as well as in metaphorical islands in other parts of Southeast Asia. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Delina. So the organizer, can you also show Professor Takako Izumi, please? So we will be receiving the question, well, if you have, to Professor Takako and Professor Delina. So I think I will start. So our people are still shy. So I would like to go with Professor Izumi first. So I think I agree with you about the all hazards approach, that we need to try to cover different types of hazard, because like during our pilot study also we found that it's not only the natural disasters, but also like different other types of disasters like technological disasters, and also within the natural disasters themselves, like many of the disasters can happen at the same time, right? So I would like to seek for your advice that, so what would be the way that we can try to get to know, might get the big picture about these all hazards that we would have to the system. You can talk from the higher education institution point of view.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Yeah, I think we are still sort of working on how effectively we can apply all hazard approach at university levels or at different levels. So, but of course, we cannot cover entire disasters, even only natural disasters. So I think we have to pick up some key or common areas. For example, risk communication and evacuation plan, or some key areas, and we can see commonly with the different types of disasters. So well, first we set that kind of key common areas. Then we have to see what will be the, again, the common tools and methodology we can apply for different types of disasters. So currently we work with the different stakeholders, different level, and what would be the, how we can sort of combine and cooperate and collaborate together with the different type of stakeholders and hazards. So this is still a very, very, how do you call it, entry level, but hopefully in a couple of years, I also would like to address this importance at the ASEAN level and regional level, and because in Western and Europe and US, they already have sort of that kind of concept of all hazard approach, but I don't see we have in Asian region. So we'd like to come up with some sort of the regional recommendation or suggestion about all hazard approach. And still we have to discuss whether this is the best approach or not, whether there are other types of approach or other terminology. But yes, and again, and your participation in collaboration are very, very welcome, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. And it seems that it's like a good way for us to work forward, right, on this. I mean, to see, so in our region, I mean, well, whether it's Southeast Asia or like the whole ASEAN, about the hazards that we are going to face. So my next question is actually to Professor Delina, because you are talking a lot about the resilience from community point of view, which I think it's very, very important. And again, I really agree with you, because from one of our case studies, which is the microgrid in the rural area, we really found that, well, the implementation of all the measures would be at the grassroots level. And I think that's really, really important. So I would like to know from your experience that when it's the rural area, especially when it's the island, so what are like the main concerns when we apply this kind of concept to them? Like, I mean, to engage the stakeholders, because like sometimes when, for example, when we introduce the microgrid, it will be very new for them. So like, do you have any, well, impediments or any problems to really engage the people at the grassroots level?
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Silva. Based on experience, people in communities are actually very receptive of these technologies, and they are also very receptive, especially if you provide capacity building or capacity development for them, meaning you train them with new skills, so that you can leave that island with thinking that your system, the system that you introduce there, will survive even if you're not around. So that's, I think, is very important to engage with this with this group of people from day one. So you do not just come to the rural place, come to the island, come to the neighborhood or a community, and just put up the system and leave. You should be, I think, project developers, those private sector and even public agencies who are putting up these technologies should really incorporate into the design of the project the voice of this end users. If you do that, then our case studies have shown that there is a high degree of success. But of course, there's also the problem of financing, and then this really takes a lot of effort and a lot of creativity, largely because you could not just ask your government or ask the private sector to invest in a rural island, in a rural place, on an off-grid island, put up a micro hydro, etc., or microgrid solar, whatever, hybrid installations or whatever. So you really need to be very creative in terms of accessing financing. And our case studies have shown that if again the end users are involved in the financing, meaning to say they pay for their systems, it's not a dole out, then it's most likely that that system will actually be successful or will be more sustainable. And of course, there are other challenges and barriers to bringing energy resilient systems in these islands, not just those two that I have mentioned.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Delina. So are there any questions from the floor? You can just turn on your camera and then ask the question if there is any. Okay, yes, please, Alicia. Alicia, please turn on your microphone, please. You're still muted.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Maybe I'm too nervous. So I would like to ask a question to Dr. Takako. I saw in one of your slides you says about wait a minute. Public health element, right? Made proven. The current emergency plan needs to incorporate a public health elements. But I'm a little bit confused. What is public health elements? Means if you say elements, means that there are many, right? So can you get more clearly? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Yes, I think this is quite a new, how do you call the issue for universities as well. And when we see the current existing disaster management or preparedness plan, we don't have much more public health aspects. But based on the experience of COVID-19, a lot of universities started talking about public health elements. So that I think we are not very sure what would be the most important part we should include in the plan and the document itself. So that yes, that is a very good. I mean, you kindly pointed out, and we really have to select what kind of public health aspects we really need to include into the plan, because we also have lacking. We are lacking some sort of the expertise of public health. So that part we need some experts to collaborate with the experts in public health, then create and develop a comprehensive and the disaster management plan, because currently it's completely missing. We developed the disaster management plan only among national disaster experts. So that's why now we need some help and support collaboration from the public health experts. Then we need to understand what kind of aspects and we really need. And thank you so much for your pointing out.
Thank you very much. So because if we talk about only the health, maybe the medical doctor or something, but because I'm from the engineering side, I was thinking if you talk about the elements, it means not only the human or the expertise, but we also have to think of about the application, some application to use when there is in the crisis situation, right? Maybe because if you roaming around by physically, maybe not much time, right? But we can send information from the application. That's why I think the internet things is quite important also. And that's why we need to connect with the energy, because the internet needs the energy, right?
Right.
So
yes, exactly.
It's maybe. Yeah, thank you very much for your...
Okay, thank you very much, Alicia. Thank you very much, Professor Izumi. So maybe one last question from Ranit, please, before the break.
Thank you. And in fact, my question is also to Professor Izumi. Because this COVID situation threw open a totally new challenge. And possibly what I wanted to ask you is, how are you looking at this challenge of managing cascading hazards in the universities? Because possibly this is a good window to address cascading hazards, especially of both natural as well as biological, combined together.
Okay, thank you very much, Ranit, for your question. Indeed, this is very new to everyone. And beforehand, as I mentioned, half of the university even did not have a management plan, even for natural hazards. Half of the university did not have. So then the plan who includes the biological hazards, that's much less. It's only 20% or something. So firstly, we have to understand, and I just received the questions. What kind of elements and issues we have to consider and for the future preparedness? Then we have to come up with a good plan or assessment first. Then have to come up with a plan. So yeah, and as you mentioned, the cascading disaster is not only the biological, but rather we have to think about the chemical and also the biochemical and the nuclear, because in campus we have all these dangerous materials. So that's the issue we are, speeding up the last couple of years. And as you mentioned, this is a very good, the opportunity. We review what we have right now, then how we can improve it, and that's something we just need to start right now. And I really do not think that's enough, and there's no one who is really prepared for this. So yes, and I need your help as well in your participation in this team. I hope we can work together for the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ranit, and thank you very much, Professor Izumi. So I think, well, it's almost 1 o'clock there in Japan, and you need some break, well, actually to grab something to eat, right? So I would like to turn the floor to the MC.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk from our distinguished speakers from various countries and have had a productive time here. Okay, we will have a short break for a moment and see you again at 11:05 a.m. We will continue to the next talk. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. I hope you all enjoy during the short break and hope that you are ready for the next talks. Okay, I think it's a time to start, and I will give the floor to Dr. Kamana Silva again to moderate the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rakiat. So we still have 2 more presentations to go, and both of them are really, really interesting. So I would like to move to the first one. It will be presented by Professor Nofri Yenita Dalan from University Technology Mara, Malaysia. She will be giving a talk on renewable energy development in Malaysia for enhancing energy resilience. So if you are ready, please start.
Okay, thank you very much, Kampanet.
Can you go with the slideshow mode, please?
Hold on here. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk in this workshop. So today I will talk on renewable energy in Malaysia for enhancing energy resilience. My name is Nofri and I'm from Solar Research Institute, SRI, University Technology Mara, Malaysia. So this is our Solar Research Institute. So it's located in a state of Pahang, and it's within the. So there is a video. Okay, so our research center located in UITM 50 megawatt large scale solar farm. It has 180,000 panels and supplying 22,000 homes. So we basically involved in doing research for projects, all the projects, solar project in UITM. And a bit on our scope of research in our center. So we do solar energy system integration, power delivery advanced system, energy efficiency, and also include development, infrastructure, water, and agro-technology. Okay, now let me come into the main outline, main content of my presentation today. So I will talk a bit on the renewable energy technology global trend and the roles of this renewable technology for enhancing energy resilience, future roles of RE in the decentralized energy market, and I would like to share with you how UITM move towards this sustainable energy development. Okay, as mentioned by US Environmental Protection Agency, and we know that majority of the global GHG emission were from electricity and heat production, which contribute 25% of the total global gas emission. And in fact, we know that the pricing volatility of the fossil fuels, along with the difficulty of forecasting fossil fuel price, has put the energy customer and provider at a risk from fluctuating energy rates. And in fact, everyone is facing this. Recently, driven by the decreased electricity demand during the pandemic, energy market have experienced a great deal of disruption. We can see the oil and gas consumption decrease substantially as people work from home and road traffic decrease, and this has caused oil price sank to historic lows, negatively impacting oil and gas. So subsequently, this factor lead to the needs of renewable energy that is less affected by the global disruption in energy market for reducing GHG emission as well as enhancing energy resilience. Okay, so let's look at the renewable energy technology global trend. So since the last 5 years, renewable energy has grown 3 times faster than nuclear and fossil fuel. IEA reported that in 2019, 27.3% of the global electricity production is from renewable electricity, where 15.9% is from hydro and 5.9% is from wind power. And it is expected that this renewable energy will lead the worldwide electricity sector by 2025 due to economic stimulus focusing on clean energy by global countries. And very interesting, the renewable energy system shows a resistance to shock, providing energy resilient. Yeah, so from RAN 21 finding, energy system with high percentage of renewables help to resist the global shock than those that the system that based on the fossil fuels. This is because renewable energy is locally produced, managed and maintained, and does not rely on the imported fuels once the project are operational. And despite the COVID-19, we can see that government from various countries has called for many tenders to install a certain capacity of the renewable plant. And renewable electricity generation reported by IEA has increased by 3% during this COVID-19 compared to the start of 2019. And a total of 42 gigawatt of solar PV global capacity has been awarded, followed by 4 gigawatt onshore wind capacity. Similar trend also was seen in Malaysia, where Malaysia opened up 4 billion bit of 1 gigawatt of solar plant during the COVID-19 time. And looking similar to other countries, Malaysia government also committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 45% by 2030 in relation to our 2005 GDP. And in line with that, so our government is currently pushing with this renewable energy in our energy transition. So this study by Sustainable Energy Development Authority, so they reported that our renewable energy installed capacity in Malaysia in 2019 is 22.9% overall, but this includes the large hydro. And this study also reported by SEDA, and there are still a lot of resource potential in Malaysia for renewable energy, specifically for solar energy. Okay, then I would like to share with you the roles of renewable technology for enhancing energy resilience in Malaysia. So I will talk on how this renewable energy help to pave sustainable electricity generation mix and renewable energy microgrid for enhancing electrification, and how this technology can be used for demand side management by the consumers. Okay, so the first roles of this renewable energy, has long been a significant role, is to enhance the energy security. So energy security has, I think it has a close link to energy resilience. So from the definition, energy security is dependent on the ability to secure fuel for generating electricity, and this is for to have a more resilient energy system. So classical definition of energy security is to have a stable supply of cheap oil. However, modern energy security is more challenging because it's entangled with other energy policy problems, such as providing equitable access to modern energy, mitigating climate change, and also resiliency. As for Malaysia, we can see this is our generation mix. So Malaysia has long been dependent on fossil fuels. So in 1970s, we used to have more than 90% of our generation is from oil. And then in 1979, when there was a oil shock, so government has changed and replaced oil with gas technology from power plant from gas. And then you can see that the the plant from gas has increased significantly until 2008, when we are facing depletion of the gas, and now coal power plant is moving. However, looking at this situation and to have a more resilient of energy supply in Malaysia, the government after that is looking for more renewable energy in the system. And significantly, we can see that in 2015, where the renewable energy system has increased 7.1% of the share in the generation mix share. And this is contributed by 1,000 megawatt large scale solar project that was introduced in 2017. Okay, other than enhancing the energy security, renewable energy is also help in enhancing electrification. So renewable energy microgrids play a critical role in supporting centralized grid system for electrical solution, especially in the rural area. And renewable energy technology also is helping consumer for demand side management, where we can see that many building owners usually employ the small scale renewable energy such as solar PV panel on their rooftop. And this energy generated from this renewable energy system that can be sold under incentive by the government, for example, feed-in tariff, or can be used for self-consumption, and the excess can be sold to the grid under the incentive scheme called net energy metering. And in Malaysia, we can see that this renewable energy for demand side management has significantly increased, and more consumers are aware of this implementation, matching the emerging business model that currently driving the expansion of solar rooftop market, together with the incentive by government that has increased the implementation of renewable energy. So there are a new business model because we know that to invest in this solar system or in this renewable energy system is expensive, and it costs it incur a huge cost for the development. So new business models such as solar power purchase agreement (SPPA) and solar leasing has emerged. So I'll talk a bit on this SPPA. So this SPPA, solar power purchase agreement, typically involve a contract between the customer and developer, where the customer, who is the roof owner, solar developer, and the utility company, and the developer, their role is to install, own, and operate the solar PV system on the consumer side and sell back the solar electricity to the consumer. And usually, under this scheme, developer will offer a discount, typically 5 to 10% lower than the grid electricity tariff for 20 to 25 years contract period. So it offers an free investment cost to the building owner and a lower price or lower tariff from the grid electricity tariff. So another model is called solar leasing models. Yeah, solar leasing models allows the leasing company or called solar lessor enter a leasing contract with the consumer solar lessee to own, install, and operate a rooftop solar on the customer roof. And the solar lessee will pay for the solar system based on the fixed rate together with the down payment and monthly installment. So in Malaysia, this emerging business model has helped building owner to invest and to implement solar rooftop in their building. And I would like to share also another interesting roles of this technology, focusing on decentralized energy market. And so if you're aware, you can see that there are a new mechanism of energy trading called peer-to-peer, and also in the platform of virtual power plant that provide platform or implementation of this renewable energy. Okay, so peer-to-peer energy trading is a medium for prosumer to sell their generated electricity at a better price to consumer who willing to pay the price without involvement of the other party. And the prosumer also can sell and buy electricity from the utility grid according to the tariff and buyback rate. So this gives opportunity, a chance for the prosumer, for the consumer like us, to have a solar system as well as to become a prosumer and sell the energy from our system within our neighborhood. There are different business model emerge globally that based on the different market design, trading platform, and ICT infrastructure that provide diverse characteristics of the profit for the developer. And IEA has forecasted that by the year of 2024, there will be 100 millions of homes globally will have the solar rooftop, and this will give a valuable prospect for P2P energy trading deployment. Okay, and Malaysia also interested and looking forward this P2P pilot P2P mechanism as a move forward for the development of renewable energy in Malaysia. In such case, SEDA, the authority, has introduced the P2P energy trading pilot run in November 2019 with an 8 months pilot. So the main objective of this pilot project is to understand the operation of this P2P, the regulatory required, assessing the technical requirement for the trading, and determine the financial impact between the prosumer and also the consumers. And the model comprised of 3 main players, which are the consumers, and the net energy metering prosumers, and the utility company. However, under this program, further study is required to be implemented that include the impact of the P2P to the grid, economic feasibility and design, appropriate business model that are essential to be conducted before a real project implementation. Okay, another interesting mechanism for the development of renewable energy in enhancing energy resilience is called virtual power plant. So this virtual power plant appeared as a new cloud-based model that aggregate this renewable energy system in the electricity power market operation to improve the grid, the energy management of the system that within this virtual power plant, security and reducing the environmental risk. And VPP is different from microgrids as its name virtual. Yeah, so VPP can be assembled using a set connected to any part of the grid and not only restricted to a particular location. So with that new mechanism, so Malaysian government has introduced net energy metering 3 for net offset virtual aggregation, a program for commercial and industry building. So this net offset virtual aggregation NOVA aim at reducing business costs through the use of a solar PV system by the commercial and industrial sector. That the NOVA program will enable sector NOVA program enable successful applicants. Okay, so basically the NOVA program consists of composed of 3 mechanism or 3 way of electricity trading. So first, the consumer can consume the electricity generated with the solar PV system. So under this program also, the consumer can sell the electricity, the excess electricity generated with a solar PV system back to the grid at market rate of system marginal price. And this is a common way or common mechanism of any standard of NEM program. But under this NOVA, what is the difference is it also allows applicant or participant in this NEM NOVA to also offset its excess electricity by distributing its generation virtually up to 3 different electricity bill account under the same organization. By having this program, an organization can do energy management to reduce the electricity bill within its organization. Okay, now I would like to share with you how UITM take the challenge from the government and take all the incentive and initiative putting by the government towards energy resilient through renewable energy development in our campus. So this, the aim of this renewable energy development is to have to enhance energy resilience in our campus, as well as to commercially to increase income generation of our university. So this is our UITM Solar Park, Solar Park 1. So this is a commercial power plant. It has a capacity of 50 megawatt plant and located in one of state in Malaysia. It's in Pahang, and it commissioned in April 2009. So for this power plant, we embark on the solar powers. We have become the independent producer, where we own and operate via special purpose vehicle, UITM Solar Power Sdn Berhad. And this power plant, it has 180,000 panels supplying 22,000 homes, and it is expected to reduce CO2 emission by 56K per year. And this is the world first university to finance this project via the issuance of ASEAN Green Sri Sukuk. Okay, and for this power plant is a commercial power plant where we sell the energy from this plant to utility. Another large-scale power plant, this is also a commercial power plant. It's a 25 megawatt in Pasir Gudang, Johor, just recently commissioned in November 2020 during the COVID-19. And this power plant is expected to generate 40,000 megawatt hour annually and supplying 11,000 homes. And this power plant also expected to reduce CO2 emission by 28K per year. And in both UITM Solar Park 1 and Solar Park 2, we have a research institute for innovative R&D, and we do research related to this solar photovoltaic application. Okay, other than the commercial solar power plant, UITM also embark in a solar rooftop project. So we are a very big university in UITM. We have 35 campuses in Malaysia. So under this solar rooftop program, so we develop this solar rooftop in stages in each of the campus. So in phase 1, this is already started, and we have developed 7 solar rooftop projects in 7 campuses. So for phase 2, there are another 6 campuses that will also have this solar PV system, and another 7 campuses in phase 3. So this is the solar rooftop in the campus. For this one is this is under the phase 1, where 7 UiTM campuses have this solar system under the solar power purchase agreement, which is a mechanism where we get the investment from engagement of a private entity who invest in this solar system, and we buy the energy according to a contract for a specific period. Cheaper electricity, so they offered us a cheaper electricity compared to electricity that we purchase from the local utility, and there is a guaranteed performance and OEM's operation and maintenance service as supplement to the main grid. Okay, so for these 7 campuses, there are roughly about 11 megawatt of installed capacity has been developed, and it's expected annual energy generation is about 67 megawatt hour, and providing 45% of UiTM energy consumption and reducing 75k ton CO2 annually. So through this engagement, this provide a living laboratory to our student, to our campus, and we can do R&D, teaching and learning using the actual system in the campus. And we also taking the challenge from the government, and now we plan to have to apply for this UiTM Net Energy Metering 3, the net offset virtual aggregation. So whereby embarking in this program, we can do energy management system between the campus, and where under this program, the offset, the energy, we can offset the generation from one of the solar PV in a campus to the other campus. Basically, the objective is to reduce the total electricity bill of UiTM. So under this implementation, currently there are 3 participants. All campus are allowed under one application of this NOVA. So by doing this, we are we target to reduce the electricity bills of UiTM, as well as to reduce the CO2 emission of the university. And we are also looking forward for the peer-to-peer energy trading via national grid. As I mentioned earlier, we have 35 campuses across Malaysia. So if we have a chance to sell or to trade our energy within our campuses, so via this national grid through peer-to-peer energy trading, so this will help our campus or our university to reduce electricity bills and lowering the CO2 footprint. And if this is happening, and so this will be act as a research platform on smart grid in Malaysia, involving energy trading or peer-to-peer trading, and provide access power to the national grid, as well as help in increase reliability of the national grid system. And of course, when we talk about energy